What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. I hope everybody's enjoying their 4th, or has enjoyed their 4th, since we're in the patriotic mood and stuff like that. It's definitely summer now with the weather, but I'm not the weatherman, so I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not Ron Burgundy. What we are going to talk about so far since... for the last few years of having this channel, Byrne and I see fit to share our top 5 movies of halfway through the year, because why not? And also, there's been a crap load of movies, I think, this year and last year more so, just because, with all the delays from COVID and recent years and stuff, and now the strikes, we're still getting a lot of content, but anyways, let's not dilly-dally. This is also non-spoilers, not that we haven't done non-spoiler reviews for these movies previously, but if you do happen to like the video, please do not forget to give us that like button. Feel free to comment down on your guys' top 5s. We'd love to know that too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with us? Is there movies we should have watched? We appreciate that, that positive feedback, or, feedback in general to a certain extent. Just try not to hurt my feelings, please. It's like...
We're sensitive souls.
Like we say, give feedback, and it's just the worst comments possible. It's like, oh man, you did not... You just look at me like you opened the floodgates on them. I'm like, yep. Yeah. Anyways, so I think Byrne and I usually like to do from our least favorite, and then we'll just work... So basically 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How's that sound to you, Byrne? Good?
Yeah, in ascending order. Makes sense. Yeah.
For sure. So my number 5 is... I was wrestling with these two, with 5 and 4, really, just because I'm like, what was the better movie for me? So I'm going to say number 5 for me was Furiosa. Just because when we first watched it, how I was talking about, how am I... Like, it was just one of those movies, I think I was going into it just with Mad Max Fury Road, comparing it to that. It just didn't live up to my expectations, so that's kind of my fault I set those. But upon rewatch, while it is definitely slow, I do agree with people I've watched it with that, yeah, it does drag a bit. It could have trimmed the fat in certain areas. I still think it's definitely one of the strongest movies of the year. Anya Taylor-Joy was great. Chris Hemsworth is just such a charismatic and fun villain, even though he's a complete monster. So that rounds out my top 5 so far of the year. It could change. It could stay the same. It could get better. It could get worse. I don't know. We still have the rest of the year to go. But Byrne, what's your number 5?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, certainly interested in seeing where that movie lands on mine. And upon rewatch, haven't had a chance to rewatch it yet, but I assume it'll be one of those that just gets better and better as the more times I watch it. And that was very much the case for the Mad Max Fury Road as well, even though I loved that initially when that came out. It's just that one was a little bit of a different flavor. So for sure, I agree with you there. One of the better movies for sure that we've gotten this year. Didn't quite hit my top 5, but what did at my number 5, and this was also a little bit of a tough one because I think this year has kind of been a little bit hit and miss, with movies. And at my 5, it was in between a few things because it was just hard to say which one I really liked more than the rest of them. But the one that certainly came up on top over the other two that I was thinking of was Late Night with the Devil. I had a lot of fun with that movie, and it was in contention with a couple of other horror movies. The recent Quiet Place Part 1 was also in contention, and also The First Omen, which I didn't get to check out on release, but did get to check it out once that came onto streaming, and I had a great time with that one. Very stressful and horrifying time, but great nonetheless. But I think the reason that The Late Night with the Devil sort of edges those other movies out for me is just because of how different it was. Just the way that it plays with aesthetics, that's very low budget, the more analog type horror thing, and the presentation of it all taking place within that sort of talk show setting, and giving David Dastmalchian it's his a starring role where he gets to lead a movie. It all worked so well for me. I just really dug the vibe of that movie. Although it's not the scariest movie in that list of 3, it's probably the least scariest for sure. But I dug the overall tone and the vibe and just sort of the messaging of that movie. I thought was really interesting. Talking about fame and virality. In the context of something that's in the older days. It's all really cool, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, for me, that one is going to be at my number 5.
Very fair, very fair. And I'm glad I did get you to watch the first Omen after all. That was a very enjoyable film. Um,
And enjoyable wouldn't be the word I use,
I
but
loved it.
it was it was great. It was really good. Very
I love
stressful.
I love getting scared. I love the rush it gets. Even though if I get nightmares from it, that's how I know it did a good job. Anyways,
Yeah.
number 4 is a movie I know I'm gonna get thrashed on, but I do not care. I still really enjoyed it. And that's the point. You know, we all have our differing opinions with movies, so my top 5 is gonna be vastly different from everybody else's. But my
All subjective.
yeah, all subjective. My number 4 is gonna be Bike Riders, just because it's one of those movies I was looking forward to. And while, again, it's slow for a lot of people, and the story can be somewhat aimless, like that's a very debatable topic, but I enjoyed the aesthetics. I think the actors killed it. Like I said, I got a good vibe of like a mix of, you know, Goodfellas with Sons of Anarchy, and it all just came together for me. Is it the best movie of the year? Obviously not, because it's not my number 4, but I think it's still really great, especially for like motorcycle enthusiasts and just you know, automotive stuff in general. So I think, you know, the motorcycles are definitely another reason why I really liked them. Stupid reason, but that's my reason, so I accept that. But yeah, I think it was just a very well done movie. Austin Butler, just he's another movie star like Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney. Anya Taylor-Joy I would even consider as getting up to that status. So it's just kind of nice to have that feeling again. But yeah, that's my number 4 for that one. Bird, what about you?
Certainly one of those movies where like all the pieces of it are really fantastic in their own right. And again, you can check out our review on that one, but all the elements were there. It just didn't really come together for me completely, but I wouldn't fault anybody who like enjoyed it as much as you did. I mean, it's still very solid all the way around. So really good pick for your number 4, I think. At my number 4 is going to be Alex Garland and A24's Civil War. Really harrowing movie, as we mentioned in our review. You know, very stressful time. It just, and also one of those movies that surprised me in the way that it presented itself. You know, going into the movie thinking it was going to kind of be about one thing, and then it sort of turning the narrative on its head and giving us something a little bit more deeper than I was expecting. And again, I should have expected it with Alex Garland and A24 at the helm, that it wasn't just going to be sort of just like a pulpy war movie. It was much more deeper than that. It was really well shot. The sound design of the movie was amazing, even though it gave me heart attacks the entire way through. But just a really well put together film, and I really liked the messaging that it had behind it. So yeah, you know, it's one of those that surprised me going into it, feeling a little bit nervous about it, but walking out of it thinking that's a great movie. Don't want to watch it again.
Very fair, very fair. I like it. That's on my list as well. We'll get to that shortly. But my number 3, you know, is a movie I feel like did not get enough love, very underrated of the year, was Fall Guy. You know, directed by one of the guys who did John Wick. I forget which one it was.
David Leitch.
David Leitch. I was gonna say Chad Kolstad, but never mind. That's not right. David Leitch. And starred Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. I thought it was one of the funniest movies I've seen in forever. And and we did a review for that, which not a lot of people saw, unfortunately. But you know, no fault to you guys. It's just one of those things.
Not a lot of people saw the movie, unfortunately.
That's what I'm saying. Is like I think it's one of those things that this movie just did not get enough appreciation, and just didn't get its credit where it was due. So such a funny movie, great homage to, you know, the production teams in the stunt category and everything. We're definitely getting close to that point where the Oscars may consider a stunt award for that, like a stunt category for movies, which I think is very valid, because without them, not everyone's going to be Tom Cruise and do stuff and risk getting hurt. So, you know, I love that movie, and I really appreciate that one. But back to you, Bern, number 3.
Yeah, like you mentioned, a great love letter to, you know, all the below the line workers in the film industry, and the unsung heroes that are actually the ones doing the flips and the kicks and the punches and the jumping off of buildings and stuff that we enjoy, you know, watching the heroes in the movies too. That's all them, you know, they're the heroes behind the scenes. And yeah, an unfortunate instance where that movie kind of went under the radar for a lot of people in theaters, but hopefully now that it's like starting to come into streaming and at home video stuff, that can hopefully find a second life and get some more traction. And especially come the awards time, hopefully it's one of those movies that pushes, yeah, like you mentioned, the idea that these people should be getting recognition for their work. So yeah, really fun movie. I had a lot of great time with that one, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be in my top 10 at some point when I put the list together. But since we're only talking about five, can't really throw that on there. But for me, at my number three is going to be Love Lies Bleeding. Really cool movie. Again, really dug the whole muscular, grungy, like dirty '80s vibe that we got from that movie. With the leads being these two female characters that we don't really get to see in this sort of context of these movies, where they're just doing very dastardly things. This very toxic relationship between the two brings out the worst in each other. It was just a really cool aesthetic, really cool soundtrack. Yeah, again, if you want to get our deeper thoughts on it, check out the review. But I thought this movie really, really like brought something new and something different than we gotten from a lot of movies that's come out this year. And I thought, Kristen Stewart and I'm blanking on the other actress's name, but they did such a fantastic job. Ed Harris was great as well. So
Katie O'Brien.
Katie O'Brien, yes, I knew it was Katie something, but I couldn't remember her last name. So thank you. Yeah, I thought they did a fantastic job in telling this incredible love story within the context of a horrible world that they were in. And yeah, I just really dug the whole vibe of that movie.
Yeah, no, Bern, I really agree. That's I forgot about Love Lies Bleeding. It was just one of those movies that it slipped through the cracks, but it was very well done. I was very surprised by that one as well. My number two is another A24 movie, which you were just talking about a couple movies ago, and that is Civil War, directed by Alex Garland. I was expecting it with the trailers and stuff and the marketing behind it. I thought it was gonna be like a very epic action war movie, just because called Civil War and stuff and the way it was marketed. But what we got instead was a very different movie, more of like a metaphor on the current landscape of everything, like politically climate wise. And I thought it worked for me on every level. The actors killed it. The action worked for it for the most part, and it was just very well shot. I think that's another like kind of like Love Lies Bleeding, how that captured the '90s. This just captured, a very dystopian America to like borderline believable. So, like I said, that's my number two, and I think it may stay up there. But at least these two movies are definitely going to stay where they're at. But we'll have to see what happens with the rest of the year. So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't imagine that movie dropping down at any point in my list. It was just a very effective experience, to put it like bluntly. It was just you're walking away from it like kind of shell shocked from what you've seen. And those are sometimes some of the better movies, that the ones that just stick with you, and you keep thinking about like every now and then. But at my number two is something a little bit on the lighter end, even though it is messy in its own right. But that's going to be Challengers. I'm a sucker for sports movies, and I'm a sucker for messy relationship movies, and we get both of those things in this one. Really well shot, very kinetic, very very good soundtrack, by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, that just propels the film even further. It brings out all the best things about a sports movie. You have your internal conflicts and your external conflicts, and in this movie it just throws those all together, and we get a really really fun time with these three leads who are all bouncing off each other really well. Zendaya giving us a character that we really haven't seen her play, so it's nice to see her step out into more different roles, and excited to see where she goes next. And the other two gentlemen were just like they were both really good, so I'm very excited to see them both continue in their career, because I thought in this movie they just brought that sort of electricity and just a messy bunch, that three. And it's just one of those times in the movies where I'm like, this is a lot of fun, and this is just really well put together. So I had a great time with this one. And yeah, Challengers at my number two.
Very strong number two. Yeah, like while that wasn't my favorite movie of the year or anything like that, it was still, I think, definitely one of the best acted ones, especially on Zendaya's part. That was such a different role for her, and just different side of her. It's like, damn, I would not want to mess with Zendaya on a bad day. So, that being said, my number one is going to be, if anyone knows me, this is a movie I've been talking about all flipping year, and that is Dune Part 2, which is easily still one of the best sequels we've had in years. Like I said, I put it up there with The Dark Knight, Avatar 2, let me see, what else is another one? Top Gun Maverick.
Maverick,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just up there, and it did such a great job of like expanding on this world, and it's definitely one of those things. If someone would ask me, what would you rather be in, Dune or Star Wars, and it's like that's a difficult question for me. So yeah, I loved it. Again, another Zendaya movie. Timothy Chalamet is just completely newfound respect for him as not only an action star but just a great actor, and just again, Austin Butler, such a great villain in that. And yeah, I right now I don't know what other movie could take that down. So yeah, hard number one for that one.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously my number one as well. I mean, I sing coming out of that movie, singing its praises, and I've been singing its praises, since then. And it's so fun having seen, in the months after that movie release, how the just the pop culture like zeitgeist kind of took that movie and started memeing it, and like just like the first movie didn't get a chance to, because of the time it released in. It seemed like in this one, people were able to latch onto it, and it kind of took on a life of its own, and that's very deserving because honestly, yeah, it's not only just one of the best movies of the year, but one of the best movies I think I've ever seen. Like I mentioned, it's a sensory masterpiece, and one of those movies where you like leave it thinking like, man, I feel so lucky to have been able to watch that, to be alive at the same time that something like this comes out, and sort of kind of changes the game in terms of things we haven't seen or heard before in a movie. And just Denis Villeneuve came out the gate as a great director, and it's been crazy seeing this be like his magnum opus, like his masterpiece, that something that you can tell is just a love letter for filmmaking in general. It's just, yeah, I can't sing his praises enough. The cast, the visuals, the audio, the music from Hans Zimmer, just one of the most perfect movies I can think of, in my personal opinion. Just, yeah, it's just great. I can't tell people enough to, if they missed it, watch Dune Part 2 now. What are you doing?
Seriously, that's one of those movies I feel like no one should miss out this year. Again, obviously it's going to happen just with life and whatever other stuff, but easily best movie of the year so far. So I'm glad we both agree on that, Burn. Just quick shout out, just to start wrapping it up a little bit. We can't stay forever. Some of the honorable mentions I will say were, Burn mentioned them, Quiet Place Day One, The First Omen, for me, Late Night with the Devil. Let me see. I was gonna say Inside Out 2 is one, and then of course I'm gonna give some love to Love Lies Bleeding too. That was just another strong movie. Horror, again, this is the year of horror, and I'm while none of them made my top 5, in the top 10 there's definitely gonna be some horror movies out there, unless we get some, because we got Long Legs coming out this month, and hopefully that scares the living hell out of me, because it looks great. And Nosferatu.
Yeah, Nosferatu, Alien, and Romulus. So there's a pretty good, healthy serving of horror movies coming out later this year that I'm really excited for. So that's going to be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. My heart isn't, but we're going to power through it, and we're going to get reviews out for all of those, because I mean they probably deserve to be seen regardless. So yeah, I mean for me, some honorable mentions. Hitman, the one that you mentioned in our conversations, the Netflix movie, Richard Linklater, Glenn Powell. Really great. If you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. Go check that out. A lot of fun. Probably one of his best movies in a few years. So definitely recommend that one. Yeah, Inside Out 2 gets a shout as well. I really enjoyed that movie. Obviously, Quiet Place Day One, and The First Omen that I mentioned. That was a really effective movie, and probably the scariest movies I've seen so far this year. We'll see how the other ones stack up in terms of the scares, but yeah, that one was pretty great.
Yeah, and then also, just to give some love to television as well, because there's been some great stuff this year. Shogun, which we did a review of, was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
X-Men 97, Fallout, and even Invincible Season 2 is still up there for me. Yeah, a lot of great... we still got some more shows to review, so keep an eye out for those coming up. But yeah, like I said, a lot of great stuff this year. Any shows that you really enjoyed, Bern, so far?
All those you mentioned already, so that I can't really add more to than that. Those are all pretty great. But I will shout out a couple of other things. A couple of video games. Helldivers 2 has been one of the things I've enjoyed a lot this year. You and I in particular have been having a really good time with that one. And,
all in the name of liberty.
Exactly, managed democracy. So that's been a great time, and something that came out just recently. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree has been an absolute treat. One of the best DLCs to one of the best games ever made. A lot of fun. I've been having a great time with that, dying over and over again. But I beat it, so
Absolutely.
it's a great time.
Good stuff, Bird. Good stuff. Video games is another thing we don't show enough love to, but we play them all the time. So like I said, with all our honorable mentions, our top fives, let us know what you guys think in the comments. What are your top fives? Anything that you want to give praise to this year? Let's keep the conversation going. Talk about all our favorite stuff. But until next time, everyone, stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.